Science news for students, tech, rise of the botnets. When harnessed together, a network of zombie computers can be a force for evil or good. Armies of zombie computers caused a lot of mayhem in 2018. In January, one cluster of infected connected machines attacked three of the biggest banks in the Netherlands. The attack crippled computer systems and left customers uncertain about their money. In February, a website for computer programmers called GitHub was knocked offline by a network of tens of thousands of devices. And in May, the public train system in Denmark was attacked. Its ticket-selling program stopped working. And that was just the first half of the year. The armies of infected devices that caused all this damage are known as robot networks, or simply botnets. These attacks happen online via the internet, and the computer culprits weren't all owned by criminals. Many machines were owned by regular people, but taken over by hackers. Hackers have been using botnets and cyber attacks for more than a decade. Now the botnet armies are getting bigger, smarter, and more destructive. In 2018, it was definitely a bad year for botnets. So was 2019 and 2016, and the several years before that. For more than a decade, botnets have been helping hackers commit crimes. They have stolen identities and money. They have attacked trains and banks. They have caused millions of dollars in damage, and some botnets can create problems for years without even being detected, says Adrian Dabrowski. He studies computer security in Vienna, Austria. Experts estimate that the biggest botnets can take over tens of millions of machines. Dabrowski says the problems of these malicious armies won't go away in 2019. Indeed, it will likely worsen. There's a lot you can do with 100,000 infected computers, notes Judy Westby. She's a security expert in Washington, D.C. Perhaps the most surprising thing that these devices is that their owners don't even know they have zombies. The user, says Westby, has a very little way of knowing. The device might simply run a little slower. For the most part, botnets are all owned by people who are not aware that the computers are infected, Westby says. And every smartphone, laptop, and gadget that connects to the internet is at risk. Meet the zombies. A botnet might include computers, cameras, and routers, or they could be other online devices such as security cameras or toys. Any electronic device that connects to the internet is vulnerable. It has to be able to run a type of computer known as malware. This program turns computers into zombies. That means it forces the computers to do whatever the hackers tell them to do. Botnet attacks can be expensive. A botnet that was attacked a website in 2016 cost more than $300,000. That cost mostly came from the extra energy used by the owners of infected machines. In the attack of GitHub in 2018, the botnet demanded $15,000 in ransom to stop the attack. GitHub didn't pay. The experts stopped the attack within a few minutes, even though it was one of the largest attacks in history. In October 2016, a botnet crippled dozens of websites. They included Amazon, PayPal, Spotify, and Twitter. Attacked businesses lost money when customers couldn't buy things. Botnets are very effective at causing problems, says Westby. She runs a company called Global Cyber Risk. It specializes in helping companies protect themselves against threats such as botnets. Experts like Westby say that botnets are getting bigger, smarter, and initiate more types of harm. They're one of the biggest threats to online security and privacy. Computer security experts and government agencies have known of tens of thousands of botnets. Most of those networks are dormant, which means they're not doing any harm right now, but they are ready to do so. But with one computer command, the botmaster or botheter, sort of like a malicious shepherd, can tell all those devices to attack. Last April, for example, a botnet that included 50,000 surveillance cameras in Japan launched a series of attacks around the world. How to amass an army of zombies. Botnet attacks will get worse, Westby says. That's partly because botmasters are finding ways to send more data from individual devices. It's also because of Internet things. That term refers to the idea that any gadget can be online. Such devices are often said to be smart. Yet smart devices are often dumb when it comes to security. As a result, they become easy prey for recruiters. To build zombie sort of smart devices, a hacker writes a computer program that searches for an internet for connected devices. Then the program tries to break into that device. It tries to guess the password. And with the right password, the program can install malware. And as long as they are getting malware in the computer, they can use it to commit crimes or send messages, says Westby. Guessing a password is easier than you might think. New devices like smart TVs, Wi-Fi routers, and security cameras are sold with a default password in place. It's often something easy like, quotations, password, quotations. According to a survey conducted by a computer magazine in June and July 2018, more than 1/3 of people never change their passwords, and many people use the same password for all of the devices, which is also risky. If a criminal is trying to build a zombie army, it tries to hack 1 million devices, they might successfully infect more than 300,000. Hacked devices can make the army even bigger. For example, the malware might direct the device to search the internet for other devices to infect. Many botnets sit quietly for months or years. One of the biggest attacks took place in 2016. The culprit was a botnet named Mirai. Its creators had written and launched Mirai in 2014. For 2 years, it spread from machine to machine, and an investigation revealed that Mirai had first been used to attack the computer system of Rutgers University in New York, Jersey in 2014 and 16. In September 2016, the culprits behind Mirai published the computer program online. Now anyone, including any hacker, could download and use it. As a result, many criminals have now used Mirai to build their own zombie networks. In 2017, a government investigation identified the culprits behind Mirai. As it turns out, 2 of them had started a company to help other businesses deal with attacks, sort of like a bank robbers moonlighting as security guards. Even though they have been caught, their creation lives on. Mirai-based botnets still cause problems. An attack occurs when the hacker who controls the zombies sends out a signal for all the devices to do something. In the case of the attack on GitHub, the zombie sent junk data to the website at the same time. This attack crashed the website. Westby says botnets can also be used to harvest personal information or credit card information. That information can be later used to steal money. It also can be sold to other criminals to use later. But that's not all botnets can do. Dabrowski says the threat from botnets isn't limited to stealing money or crippling websites. His research has shown that it's possible for them to move beyond machines and cause real physical danger. It's not just stealing credit cards or invading your privacy, he says. Botnets can actually have the impact of the physical world. Lights out. Dabrowski works at SBA Research, a security company in Vienna. He studies ways that virtual and physical worlds come together. He has studied privacy and security in wearable gadgets like fitness trackers, for example, but recently he's been studying power grids. He's worried that they're an easy target for botnets. The power grid connects the places where electricity is generated to the people who use it. It includes power stations, wires, and towers, and it runs on computer software. If the power grid goes offline, people lose access to electricity. The grid is vital to daily life, and as Dabrowski notes, it's also amongst the largest structures built by people. Power grids are a type of cyber-physical system, which means they bring together computer systems and real-world parts. A few years ago, Dabrowski attended a talk where the speaker described how power grids work. Almost immediately afterward, he began to think about ways that a power grid could break. Trying to find weaknesses in systems, he says, is an important part of working in security. Everything you see, you start wondering, where's the flaw? How can I misuse this thing, he says. In 2017, he identified how a power grid might fall to victim of botnets. Computers need energy to function. Different parts of a computer require different amounts of energy. Botnets can harness and control those energy-guzzling features. For an individual machine, that would only mean a higher energy bill for the unsuspecting user, but a botnet controlling millions of machines could gobble up so much energy that it overloads the grid and shuts it down. An attack can basically render the grid unusable, he worries. A loss of power would be more than inconvenient, it would be dangerous too. Wastewater treatment plants are often connected to the grid, so they could shut down. If hospitals lose power and don't have a backup source, patients could be in danger. Gas pumps that use electricity would stop working so that people couldn't add fuel to their vehicles. Recognizing that power grids have weaknesses is important for protection, Dabrowski says. However, he also predicts hackers will find a way to break in. It's impossible to build a grid that by itself is resilient to this attack. Predicting how botnets might attack is important. If engineers know a system's weak spots, they can build detectors that can sound alarm when botnets attack. Computer armies are working for good. Botmasters use armies of zombies to complete a task. Usually, it is one that is against the law, but connected computers can also be used for good. Together, the computing power can be used to discover new things about the world. Dave Anderson is a computer scientist at the University of California, Berkeley. He's a pioneer in a type of research known as volunteer computing. Anderson has developed projects where users allow their devices to be used to solve big problems. Volunteer computing is not malware. One of Anderson's first projects is still running. It's called SETI at Home. SETI originally stood for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. The SETI project uses data from radio telescopes to search for potential signals from aliens, but radio telescopes collect a lot of data, too much for one computer to search. Working together, a lot of linked computers can do the job. People who sign up for SETI at home allow their computers to churn through data and look for signals. Then those computers send the results over to the internet to the central computer. So far, SETI at home hasn't found any aliens, but it's not for lack of trying. SETI at home uses the power of about 250,000 volunteer computers. Anderson wants more. I would like to be 10 times more or 100 times more as much, he says. Anderson has developed software that helps other scientists conduct big data projects beyond aliens. These include programs that simulate climate conditions. They also include studies of how DNA folds up inside a cell. Anderson Volunteers Computing helps in studies where one big task can be broken into smaller ones. Sometimes those big tasks could be done by a supercomputer. Alas, most scientists don't have a supercomputer. A supercomputer is actually a bunch of processors connected by a high-speed network, explains Anderson. So volunteer computing creates a connection that acts like a supercomputer. Even though volunteer computing brings computers together, it's not botnet. It's because, unlike botnets, volunteer computing depends on people choosing to work towards some common goal, but Anderson still worries about botnets. Our worst nightmare is that a hacker might take over a server and distribute malware. We have a bunch of features to prevent that. The best way for an individual users to stop using botnets to prevent infections, Westby has some tips for us how to do that. She recommends that people set difficult passwords and never keep the difficult password on a new device. In addition, she advises us to be careful about internet use. Some links sent via email or online can lead a user to download malware by accident. She says not to click on links in strange emails or on websites you don't trust. The minute they click on something or go to some site they could be infected. People who suspect their computer might host vicious programs can use anti-malware software to find them and get rid of them. Westby says students have to be smart about what they do online. She also thinks that today's students will come up with smart solutions for problems like botnets. Kids look at things differently than adults. They can look at a problem fresh and come up with a cleaner approach. Botnets, she suspects, are a problem that kids could effectively solve. Kids like you guys. Here's a whole bunch of power words: alien, botnet, botmaster, cell, climate, computer program, cyber, DNA, dormant, electricity, engineer, hack, host, infect, intelligence, internet, internet of things, link, malware, network, online, physical, power grid, prey, processor, radio, resilient, risk, robot, router, server, SETI, simulate, smart device, software, solution, surveillance, survey, telescope terrestrial, Twitter, virtual computing, wastewater, and Wi-Fi.